password at the video via audio. Do not skip. Listen to get password. Download free ebooks MEGAPACK. Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. William Wilson. By Edgar Allan Poe. Short story William Wilson by Edgar Allan Poe, the earliest and most prominent writer of strange poetry and prose, is featured in this collection. A good example of Poe's use of surreal motifs is in W. Wilson, where the author creates a figure with a split personality to introduce the reader to mysticism and the occult. An earlier version of this story was released as part of Poe's anthology, Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, in 1839 in Burton's Gentleman's Magazine and later reprinted as a standalone piece in 1840. As part of Edgar Allan Poe's collection of previously published short stories titled Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, the piece was first published in 1839. Some people believe William Wilson is semi-autobiographical because of the story's similarities to the author's own life, such as the protagonist's birthday. In the story, William Wilson, an arrogant and domineering 12-year-old, is the protagonist. Except for one, none of the other students at the boarding school are terrified of William, who shares his name, birthday, and physical attributes. William was enraged by the boy's attitude of defiance. Later in life, he would run into the boy, especially in situations when the doppelganger would see through his deceit and put him in danger. When Wilson is offered the opportunity to murder his doppelganger, he does so only to find his injured body reflected in the mirror. The story's most notable amazing element revolves on the theme of dual personalities. To make him seem more real, we don't know whether or not the double is real throughout the duration of the story. It is impossible for someone to have a double who is identical to them in terms of their appearance, name, and birth date, and not being twins. He may be a mirror of Williams's dual personality, which no one except Williams knows about. That is the most likely explanation for this extraordinary aspect, unless W. Wilson is mentally sick or unstable. In any case, the double flows across the entire plot as Wilson's lack of or full disregard for his own consciousness. Poe's other stories aren't quite like this one. Our memories of his music are frequently jogged when listening to his anecdotes. They have a poetic and illustrative style to them. It's also worth noting that this story's words and sentences have been carefully chosen. They are brief, with only a few adjectives thrown in, and this leads to a lack of imagination. Instead of being lyrical, William Wilson is factual and reassuring in tone. Despite Poe's own admissions to the contrary, it's clear from the story's widespread critical acclaim that the author put much work into writing it. There have been numerous literary, theatrical, and film versions of this story. Novel's main theme is the subject of split personality. These descriptions of places and persons are more detailed than in other Poe novels. William Wilson, the storyteller, tells the story. He's ashamed of the things he's done in life and wants to keep his real name a secret. For all the ills he could not combat, he blames circumstances and temptations. He's persuaded that his bad deeds are a result of his faulty genes. Even at such a young age, his parents were powerless to stop his nefarious activities. This is a building that reminds him of a prison. There are strict rules at that school. Order and discipline are the norm in that school. Dr. Bransby, his pastor, was also the school's headmaster. William's arrogance has resulted in him imposing his will on his fellow students. The only one who refuses to submit to his authority is his own son. They're born on the same day, are the same height, and have the identical facial features by chance. The boy's leader is William's duplicate. Due to William's dissatisfaction with this reality, he begins a competition with the doppelganger. Eventually, the boy's animosity evolves into a full-blown hatred. W. Wilson sometimes thinks he remembers him from a period long ago. Williams transfers to Eton after completing 5 years of public schooling. The resemblance between the two people faded away with time. He leads a squandered existence as a college student. After a wild night of drinking, he wakes up one morning to find his doppelganger, who tells him that the life he's leading isn't all that great. His well-to-do parents can afford to pay for him to go to Oxford University. He, on the other hand, spends lavishly and begins to gamble. As a result, Glendinning, a man who's just looking at him would make everyone feel sorry for him. The young males in the room were giving William disgusted looks. Strange events begin to take place, the door is opened, the candles are out, and a stranger enters. Wilson is exposed as a liar and shamed in front of the public by this stranger. As a result, he's also the one who reveals where Williams hides his winning cards. After being humiliated and defeated, he decided to leave Oxford and begin his globe tour. Ignoring your fate is pointless. It is at this point when the protagonist understands his tormentor is actually his doppelganger. If you don't like each other, you can't have anything to do with each other, therefore you challenge him to duel. Password, capital F, capital I, capital N, 101. In Rome, Carnival was in full swing at the time this occurred. A sword pierces the double's chest after pushing him into the railing. He's surprised to see his bloodied and pallid visage staring back at him in the mirror. His final words to himself are, "You have conquered, and I yield. Yet, henceforward art thou also dead, dead to the world, to heaven and to hope. In me didst thou exists, and, in my death, see by this image, which is thine own, how utterly thou hast murdered thyself." Split personality character. Although he was a creative child, he was also stubborn, weird, and overly controlling. His poor upbringing was caused in large part by his parents. While still a student, he was acutely aware of his flaws, which led to the creation of the twin in his mind. But he refuses to let up, even going so far as to engage the double in combat. This man's life is a whirlwind. He drinks, gets corrupt, and does bad things to people. In order to avoid hearing the warnings of his own mind, he prefers to murder it and be rid of it for good. It is only at the very end that he comes to terms with this. At the very end, he realizes that he has killed himself rather than his consciousness. In addition to being a novelist, poet, editor, and critic of the American realism movement, Edgar Allan Poe was also a prolific poet. 2 years after his birth, his biological parents died, and he was raised by a tobacconist who sent him to school in England. His gambling debt and the disinterest of the tobacco dealer led to his expulsion from the school. He enlisted in the military under a false name, but was expelled after refusing to follow commands. Marriage to a young girl who died of disease and is blamed for Poe's drinking and opium addiction is a common theory. In honor of her, he wrote the song Annabel Lee. Poems such as The Raven and The Murders in the Rue Morgue made him famous in the early 20th century. His best-known crime books include The Purloined Letter. After attempting suicide, he went missing for 3 days. When he returned, he was found dead in an unusual state in 1849. The Black Cat, for example, is one of his mystical masterpieces. Songs with ethereal, mystical, and surreal themes were among his specialties. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.